Part 2, Creating a Cohesive Muslim Community. Chapter 3, Criticism. In this reminder, inshallah, I just want to share with you one small section from a very small surah. Surah Al Asr is probably a surah you have heard many talks on, many reminders on, and it is important we remind ourselves of the wisdom that's encapsulated inside this very beautiful surah. In one sense, it's a summary of the entire Quran. You can say it is a summary of the entire religion of Islam. All we have to do to succeed in this life, or more accurately, all we have to do to avoid failure in this life, is described in Surah Al Asr. Many times when I give durus on Surah Al Asr, I let people know in the beginning, and I'll let you know too, that Surah Al Asr is not about attaining success. It's not a surah that teaches Muslim how to become successful. It actually teaches Muslim how not to become failures. There are teachers when they start a course, they give advice. Here's what you do to get an A. Here's how you get 100 on the test. Here's how you become the top student. That's one kind of advice. And that is there in the Quran too. But then there are other teachers, or there are other times, and the teacher says, okay, you have to meet these minimum requirements, and if you don't meet these minimum requirements, you fail. Forget about the A. I won't even give you a D. You are going to get an F. You're not passing this class. Surah Al Asr is about that minimum. It's an urgency for us to remind ourselves of that minimum, because it's important to remind ourselves not just of the higher grades and the extra credit assignments that will give us more and more promotions in this religion. None of that is relevant if you are not even passing. None of that makes sense if you are not even meeting the minimum requirements, right? So this reminder is not about Surah Al-Asr itself, as I stated in the beginning. It's about one piece of it that easily gets neglected. There is one piece of it that we have to pay extra attention to, because Allah Azza wa Jal put 4 connected conditions on meeting the minimum requirements. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, number 2, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, number 3, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, number 4, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. There are 4 conditions in this reminder. More than anything else, I want you to focus on just one condition, and it's not إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, and it's not وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. In this reminder, I want you to reflect a little bit with you about the idea that Allah captures inside the phrase وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. I think it's important to take advantage of short surahs and give reminders on them and discuss them more, because pretty much every Muslim either knows them already, even our children know them already, and if you don't, it would not take you much time to memorize them. So it would not take much time to remind ourselves of the lessons that are captured and the wisdom that is buried inside these words. Subhanallah. So first, a rough translation of this surah is in order. Wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. By the time, lo, man is in a state of loss, save those who have faith and do righteous deeds and console each other to hold on to truth and console each other to be steadfast. In the surah, Allah swears by the time that's running out that no doubt every single human being is drowning in loss, in some loss. And then Allah says the only exceptions are those who have believed. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and they do the few good deeds that are asked of them. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ is commonly translated, and they enjoin the truth. Some more contemporary translations try to suggest they encourage each other towards the truth. These are the kinds of translation you get for وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. Similarly for وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, they enjoin perseverance. They encourage each other to be patient. I wanted to dig a little bit first into this phrase, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, to give us a perspective on what Allah is saying in this incredible surah. But before I do that, I want some perspective of what is motivating me to reflect on this surah. We are living today in a culture that thrives on criticism. People go to see a movie and they give it 2 stars or 3 stars or 4 stars. They like to give a critique to it. People who watch a YouTube video and they like to comment and present their criticism in that comment. People post something on Facebook and others comment and critique and offer their counter opinion, like the Arabic saying goes. Likulli khitab jawab. Every time somebody voices an opinion, somebody's got something counter to say. There's always a counter argument, criticism, evaluation. I kind of like it. I agree, but I don't agree with this thing or that thing. It's okay. It's not great, etc. So we are used to that kind of culture. That's the consumer culture we are in. You can't even just go shopping. Actually, when you go shopping, you look at the criticism of the product first. You Google trouble with this computer or trouble with this car or whatever, and then you find out what those ratings are. When you go buy something on Amazon, you look at the star ratings or customer reviews first. So we are in the mood, we are surrounded by this idea of constant criticism, and it's not just about being consumers, it's become a part of our culture. So now we love criticizing teachers, students, parents, children, co-worker, bosses, managers, friends, speakers, audiences. It doesn't matter who. The imam might be complaining about the congregation might be complaining about the imam. Friends are complaining about each other, usually not in each other's presence. People complain about Islamic organizations complain about other Islamic organization. It's just become a thing. We don't even think twice about it. As a matter of fact, when I travel and meet people from different communities, I don't know anything about them. I only spend a couple of hours, maybe a day, with those people. They're taking me from the airport, so I say, how's your community? They say, mashallah, it's good, but we have got a lot of problems. And then there is a list of 20 criticism. So it began with mashallah and alhamdulillah, but we are programmed to almost constantly think about criticisms. If you look at the kind of comments, the kinds of communication that are especially public nowadays because of social media, but even in regular TV media and even in our common discourse, most of the time what we are talking about is criticism. Much of what we talk about is critical, and sometimes people hide behind the defense, well, I'm being constructively critical, I'm criticizing to improve things. Now here's the thing with that, and that's what I really wanted to highlight here. This surah is actually giving us a pretty important principle about criticism. It's included in the surah, but many don't pay attention to that idea. So let's think a little bit about this wording. The word tawaso comes from the original word al-wasiya in the Arabic language. The word wasiya is used when you leave a will, when somebody is dying and they leave parting advice. For example, some elderly persons on their deathbed and their children and their grandchildren are surrounding them before the ruh leaves the body. The few words they say could be called a wasiya. Everybody around them is crying. They are trying to listen to every last word they say because this might be the last time they hear that voice. Those words are going to ring in their head the rest of their lives. That's a wasiya. And by the way, wasiya is related to virasa. Virasa is leaving a will, right? So in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal even says, that is how Allah gives you advice. In other words, when somebody is about to die or they know they are terminally ill, or they are about to leave and they are not sure if they are going to come back, then what do? They call their loved ones together and they say, listen, I may or may not see you again, but I really want you to listen to my advice, please. End the fight with your brother, be good to your mother, do this, do that. They give some advice. That kind of advice is called wasiya, and wasiya therefore is never technically given to strangers. You don't give wasiya to strangers, you actually give wasiya to loved ones by definition. We haven't even gotten into the linguistic yet. This is just a social reality. Wasiya is not technically given to strangers, it is given to people you care about, people that love you, people that are sad that you are leaving them, and so there is a sense of urgency to want to hear what you have to say. They are going to drop everything. They are not going to be texting while you are giving the wasiya. They are not going to be on the phone like, yeah, I'm listening to both of you. No, they're not going to do that. They are not going to have the TV on. They are going to give you 100% attention because you are about to give them a wasiya, and it's one of the most powerful memories in people's lives. Some people have had that trauma in their life. They have had a loved one pass away, they have been next to the loved one that passed away, and they remember the words that were said. They remember those parting words. They stay in their head for the rest of their lives. Now that's important. That's one dimension of wasiya that I wanted to highlight first. There are other dimensions that I'll highlight, but I wanted to start with this one. Why? Because when Allah says, and we translate, they enjoin each other to the truth, then we are missing one fundamental reality. To tell somebody about the truth in keeping with the word wasiya, you have to love the one you are telling. You have to have love for the one you are telling some truth to. A lot of times when we criticize under the banner of truth. I'm just speaking the truth, brother. But do you love the one you're speaking the truth about? Because if they are a believer and you disagree with the other believer, we disagree with each other all the time, that's fine. But is your criticism, even if it is criticism, is it first and foremost rooted in love, in concern? Do you care about them? And is that what's driving you to give this wasiyah? Then there is the other matter. Sometimes we are afraid to criticize. That's the opposite problem. On the one hand, we are overly critical, and on the other hand, we are not critical at all. In other words, we don't want to speak out and say the right thing because somebody might get upset. I don't want to say anything. I know my uncle has a really bad temper and he yells at his kids and he yells at his wife, but he's an elder, so I shouldn't say anything. Or there's one of your relatives and they do a lot of backbiting. Every time you see them, they are talking bad about somebody else. I shouldn't say anything. I don't know. They'll feel bad if I say something. So you hold back from saying something. But actually, part of your love for them is that you are honest to them. This is something Muslims have to learn. It's very hard. You know what we do? The way we show love to our loved one is we don't tell them the truth. Their feelings might get hurt. That's not love. That's deception. You're not doing them a favor by not bringing something important to their attention. You're not doing them a favor by allowing them to do more wrong that is being written against them. It's being reported. It's not like they are getting away with it. If you love them, you don't want them to get into more trouble. You want to help them. But you know what? The tone that you are going to take, and I'm going to take, the time I will pick to give the advice, the sentiments with which I will carry it, the words I'm going to choose, all of them will be governed by the love I have for them. And if love is not there, if that concern is not there, that we are going to pick some pretty offensive ways of saying things. Your uncle has a temper problem and you walk up to him. By the way, I read a reminder today, uncle, and you have a real temper problem. You have a serious issue. I just wanted to fulfill my obligation to Surah Al-Asr and let you know. Assalamu alaikum. And you walk away. No. You have to become loving and creative in trying to bring something to other. This is part of the waso. Uncle, I was wondering, I don't want you to be upset or anything, but I noticed your son was really sad the other day. Were you angry with him? Yeah, well, And then you're like, uncle, I know you get angry. I know he does the wrong thing, but can you be just a little bit easier? Because he is really depressed and he cares and he doesn't want to disappoint you. You find a softer way of saying the same thing. You're not so direct and aggressive. You still said the truth, but because it's coupled with the idea of the waso and wasiyah, it's soft, it's loving. And by the way, the other thing about wasiyah is when wasiyah is given, it goes right to the heart of the other. Wasiyah is given to the loved one whose heart is softened. He's already in tears, and that's when you give wasiyah. You have to find a way to emotionally reach someone. Sometimes when you give advice, you know what happens? People become more aggressive and even worse off than they were before you gave them advice. Just because of the way you gave advice, just because of the way you talk to them, they have become worse. So you're not making things better. I'm enjoining the truth, brother. You might be enjoining the truth, but you're not doing the waso bil haq. Those are two different things. Maybe you got caught up in the English translation or something. That's not the waso bil haq. So that's one dimension. The other dimensions of this word that subhanallah is so beautiful is that the word wasiyah, they in Arabic, Wasyal Arz, when the vegetation on the earth like grass and trees, they have deep roots and it's hard to pluck them out. Sometimes the earth has weak grass and shrubs and things like that. When the wind blows, they blow away. Other times the earth has plants that are deeply rooted and connected and can't be separated easily. That is part of the meaning of the root of the word Vasya. When the earth is bonded together with its plant life, the implication of that in the word Tavaso is that they stay together with each other. Now, when you are giving somebody truth, obviously they are doing something wrong and you are telling them the truth, or maybe they are falling behind and you are giving them advice. This means that this might create friction. But Allah embedded inside the language of the word that you have to stick with loved ones. You can't have one harsh conversation and give up on them. You can't try to give somebody advice and they blow up in your face and you're like, forget that. I'm not talking to them again. I hate my cousin. It's over. He's got a temper problem. No, no. Tawaso actually means they stay together with each other for the purpose of committing to the truth. You can't give up on family. You can't give up on friends and you can't give up on other believers. The ayah did not begin with families. It began with إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. None of us gives up on the other one. None of us says about the other one they are a lost cause. And by the way, this idea of tawaso bil haq, this is actually the building block of the Muslim community. In a Muslim community, sometimes there are people who make mistake. People that we know in our community, we find out that they made a mistake. They did something bad. They lost their temper. They said something they should not have said. They sent an email they should not have sent or whatever. And they are now forever villains. This guy, man, oh. Remember his email from 1998? We can't have him. He's here again. Oh, was it? No. You don't give up on your people, even if they made a mistake. You don't give up. This is part of Tawasul bil Haq. You have to stick together. They say in Arabic, Al-Wasi. Jaraid al-Nakhal allati yahzam biha. The bark of the palm tree has a certain paper-like substance that comes out of it. They bind it together and make a rope out of it that you can tie something with. That's from the word wasya, also meaning you are tied to each other because of the truth. The ba here could be ba al-sababiyya. What tawasaw bil haq could mean you're bonded to each other because of your commitment to the truth. This is the quality of the people who don't fail. You know what Allah is telling us? If we don't do this, we have failed. This is the minimum. This is not a higher expectation. This is a minimum requirement of tawasaw bil haq. We have to stick with one another. Now, another couple of things before I conclude. Another dimension of the phrase tawasaw. In Watawasaw bil haq, some students reading this who are learning Arabic know the pattern in sarf. Taf'ala is used when two parties, two sides or more, are doing the same thing and are cooperating with each other. In other words, I am giving you advice and you are giving me advice. You are letting my advice get into your heart and I am ready to let your advice get into my heart. That is tawasaw. Like the sharu, ta'awun, tahawur, anything in that pattern of the Arabic language, there are two parties that are both equally engaged in something. Now, what happens in our families and by extension our communities is there are some people who are professional advice givers. Their job is to give the advice, and boy, they get really offended if you were to give them advice. Bad idea. Wait, you're going to give me advice? I am the khatib. I give. See the mic? It's on my collar. You don't have a mic on. You are not giving me advice. I give you advice, brother. It's not just about a khatib or an alim or a speaker. It could be an elder. It could be a physician. I'm not picking on doctors. It could be the CEO of a company. But I'm saying that you are used to giving patients advice. You're used to giving the nurses advice. You're used to giving the administration advice. Then somebody at the masjid gives you advice and you're like, excuse me? You're not used to taking advice. You are used to giving it. Part of tawasaw is that the people you give advice to, the same people I give advice to, are the same people I am willing to take advice from. Now, that's hard. That's hard because sometimes we give our wife advice, but then the wife decides she is going to give us some advice back. Well, that doesn't go very well, you know. we like the one-way street. This two-way street thing is, hey, wait a second. Sometimes we like to give young people advice, but sometimes when they say, Uncle, maybe if we did things this way, and they try to give us advice, we are like, no, you're old. Don't try to get too big for your shoes. We put them in their place. What's the idea behind that? That's not tawaso. Tawaso means I am as willing and as concerned for the other to give me loving counsel. My love for them has softened me towards them. So even when they ask something of me, legitimate or illegitimate, I am willing to listen. I'm willing to listen patiently. I'm not going to reject it just because they are saying it. I'm reminded of a really beautiful incident in the life of Umar Radiallahu Ta'ala anhu on the matter of tawasu, being able to not just give advice but to take it. At the time he's Amirul Mu'mineen, his job is to give khutbah. His job is to advise people on what to do and to remind them about honesty. He was on one of his strolls and he happened to peer through a window. He sees a guy drinking and he looks like he's drunk. Now, Umar Radiallahu anhu, his temper. He busts down the door, grabs the guy by the collar. You drinking under my watch? The guy says, I did one haram act. You did 3 haram acts. Umar Raziallah anha was like, what? What are you talking about? He says, first of all, you looked inside my window. You're supposed to observe the privacy of a Muslim. You're not supposed to look inside. Second, you made the assumption that I am drinking alcohol. You couldn't have known. I could have been drinking water. I could have been drinking milk. You shouldn't be making assumptions about Muslim. Third, you entered my home without permission. You are not supposed to until you are wanted. Don't go into a believer's house. You did 3 haram acts. Umar Raziallahu Ta'ala anhu apologized, let him go, and walked away. Now, he is the head of the state. He could have said, oh, you got a mouth too, huh? You come with me. I'll give you a special treatment. No. He left. A few weeks go by and Umar Raziallahu anha is giving the khutbah and this guy walks into the masjid. Same guy. Umar ends the khutbah and he calls the guy over and privately says to him, hey, ever since then I never told anything about you. And the guy says to Umar Raziallahu Ta'ala anhu, ever since then I stopped drinking. That's tawaso. Even though he is in a position of leadership, he is willing to listen. He is not going to dismiss somebody. Even the guy who's drunk, Umar Raziallahu Ta'ala anhu is taking advice from a guy who smells of alcohol. They understood what tawaso bil haq means. As I hear near the conclusion, I want to highlight some more things about tawaso bil haq. What does it mean for you and me to live by it? One dimension is the ba. When you say bil haq, it can actually be looked at in multiple ways. It can be looked at as a maful bihi, or it can be looked at as hal. What that means is simple English is when you give somebody counsel, be honest in your counsel, be sincere in your counsel, no strings attached. I'm not giving you advice because it will benefit me in some way. I'm not giving you counsel because I have got some other agenda that will support something that I'm looking to get done. I am only giving you advice because I care about you. My motives are pure. I'm truthful in the way that I give you counsel. That is the condition. So sometimes we only give advice to people that if we don't give them that advice, the business will get hurt. Or if we don't give them that advice, some of our other relationships might get messed up. There is some other agenda. There is something else tied to this advice. Otherwise, you don't care. Otherwise, you would never call this person. You only call them because calling them has some benefit to yourself. That is not the tawaso bil haq. The tawaso bil haq is you call people, you follow up with them, you ask them questions when you actually care about them. Now here's for example a situation, just to put this in a practical terms. You have a friend but you never call him. You know he is going through a divorce, you know he's going through some trouble, but you never call him, you don't care. And then you find out that he has something of yours, or he has some contact that you need. He has a phone number for somebody. You need that phone number. So now you call him. How's it going? How's your situation? Any better? By the way, I need a phone number. You don't really care about his situation. All you care about is your phone number. That's not tawaso bil haq. Tawaso bil haq is when you call someone because you care, not because of some other reason. That's part of the sincerity inside the words bil haq. And finally, the last bit in Tawassul bil Haq. If you look at it as a maf'ul, then it means using the truth, they advise each other. In other words, a lot of Sahaba interpreted Al Haq here as Al Quran, that is Tawassul bil Quran. In other words, they advise each other with the ultimate truth. They don't beat around the bush. Part of fixing our relationships, all of our relationships, friends, families, your relationship with your parents, your relationship with your children, part of that is honesty. There are so many people who don't honestly tell their parents that they are being hurt. They don't honestly tell their children that their words are hurting them. They don't honestly tell their husband or their wife how they truly feel. They are not honest about it. And you know why they don't say it? Because they say, well, if I'm honest, then it might create a fight. If I tell people how I really feel, they might get really angry at me. Let me tell you, when you keep bottling up your emotions, that's not sabr. You're collecting more gunpowder and eventually it will explode. Eventually, it's all going to come out and it's going to get really ugly. We have to get in the habit of being honest with each other in our relationships, using the truth in our relationships, yet at the same time maintaining a demeanor of love and respect, maintaining a demeanor of concern for the other. I'm equally concerned for my mother as I am for myself. Some of you sons reading this today, your mothers want you to get married to someone you don't want to get married to, for example, and you're like, I shouldn't say anything, it's my mom and I shouldn't say anything. Actually, you should, but lovingly. Mom, I don't like her. I love you. You can beat me. Here's a shoe. Just beat me. But I don't like her. I can't do it. And girls, the same way. You have to speak up. It doesn't mean I'm not going to do it, mom. You don't understand me. No, no. That's not tawasu either. You have to keep a loving demeanor. You have to keep a respectful demeanor. But that doesn't mean you shy away from saying the truth. That is what is necessary in all of your relationships. If we can learn to do that in our families, then we can slowly learn to do that at the level of community. Then we can become people that can take criticism, because we are not giving criticism in a nasty, ugly, mean way, in an intensive way. We are doing it because we have already developed a kind of bond with each other, where we can speak honestly with each other. We can have criticism going back and forth with each other, and it's fine. All human beings recognize that they make mistake. The only way they grow is if they learn from one another. Subhanallah. So I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal help us fulfill this beautiful, simple and yet comprehensive advice of Tawasaw bil Haq. O Allah, make us of those who believe. Allazina amanu, do righteous deeds, wa amilu